Hello, my name is Julie Hiller, and I'm going to present to you the therapeutic relationship. The objectives for this presentation are: we will define and discuss motivational interviewing, discuss the spirit of motivational interviewing, define and discuss the trans-theoretical theory, and discuss how motivational interviewing and the trans-theoretical theory can work together. Motivational interviewing is a conversation about change. It has been shown to promote behavior change. It improves the provider-client relationship and also has been shown to improve efficiency of the counseling session. It helps the client to express why and how they might change. And the provider can save time in using this by escaping unproductive discussion. Instead, they use a rapid engagement to narrow in on making changes. The spirit of motivational interviewing is the mind and heart set of MI. It's the underlying perspective in which the provider practices. If it's not considered, then MI becomes a form of manipulation. It can be described as a way of being. There are 4 interrelated components of the spirit. They are partnership, acceptance, compassion, and evocation. And there is an experiential and behavioral component to each of these. The spirit of motivational interviewing also includes partnership. And this means that motivational interviewing is done for or with a person. There is a collaboration of 2 experts on the subject, the provider and the client. Acceptance requires that the provider have an absolute acceptance of the client. The provider does not have to agree with their behavior, but he needs to accept that. There are 4 aspects of acceptance that can be broken down even further, and that is absolute worth, autonomy, having accurate empathy, and affirmation. Compassion is the ability to encourage the other's welfare. This means we're giving precedence to the other's needs. And evocation is the skill that is needed to call or pull forward. Something called change talk is what we're going to discuss next. It is a self-expressed language that demonstrates an argument for change. It's an expression of the client's ability, desire, need, and reason for change. In this, the client hears himself describing the motivation for change, and this is echoed by the provider. There are some guiding principles for the provider, and the first is resist the righting reflex, not correcting them, hearing them out. The provider also wants to understand and explore the client's motivations, wants to listen with empathy, and wants to help the client feel empowered. There are categories of change talk. There's 2 cognitive, and this is when the client recognizes the problem, such as saying, I have gained weight from eating too much fried food. Another shows optimism for change. An example of this might be, many people have had success in losing weight, so can I. An effective category of change talk recognizes it's recognized as an expression of concern. An example of this would be, I am so worried about my high blood pressure. My weight gain has caused it to increase. The behavioral category illustrates the intention to change. An example would be, I used to enjoy exercising. I'm going to start walking again at lunch. Now let's discuss the trans-theoretical model. It is also known as the stages of change model. It has evolved as one of the prevailing models for change used in therapy. It's composed of at least 14 individual components that can be divided into 3 categories. First is the stages of change, and they include pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance. There are dependent variables, and this includes a decisional balance and self-efficacy versus temptation. And then there are dependent and independent variables, and they're included in these are 10 processes of change. These changes take place as a process of passing through the 5 stages. It needs to be recognized that it takes place over time, and as I just mentioned, there are 5 stages that we will cover here. Pre-contemplation means there's no intention of changing within the next 6 months. In fact, they're really not aware of the health implications of their current behavior. In the contemplation stage, they recognize there's a need for change, but they're feeling very ambivalent. They're thinking about the change, but they're not taking any action. In the preparation stage, they recognize the advantages outweigh the disadvantage, and they're getting themselves ready and their social world ready for a change. In the action stage, their behavior has altered successfully to an acceptable degree. Usually this is for 1 day or up to 6 months, and they are continuing to work at it. The 5th stage is maintenance, and this is where the client has been engaging in the behavior for more than 6 months, and they're starting to consolidate gains from the previous stages. It's important to recognize these stages occur in a linear order. They move from one stage to another. However, slipping is normal and lapses occur, so the client may move from one stage to another, but the client and the provider work together to maintain that this is realistic, and they work to try to avoid discouragement. Using motivational and the theoretical model together. Unfortunately, a lack of motivation equals a lack of progress and possible regression. But MI is thought to be a complementary approach to the trans-theoretical model. It contains strategies to motivate the client to build commitment to change. It's especially useful in the pre-contemplation and contemplation stages of the trans-theoretical model. This is where ambivalence is most present. Research has been done by Dre and Wade. This was used in a study on eating disorders, and they determined that motivation is associated with better treatment, adherence, and outcomes. And they also determined that motivation increased with the use of motivational interviewing when clients were in the initial stages of the trans-theoretical model. Another study by Erol and Rodkin, done on smoking cessation, used MI with the trans-theoretical model, and it showed that it influenced and empowered the adolescents in the study positively. They used MI in the action stage, and they saw 40 and 55% positive movements. So these studies demonstrate that MI is useful in the first 3 stages of the trans-theoretical, or the stages of change. But how can this be used in practice? In the pre-contemplation stage, you can use MI to evoke change talk. If the client is unaware the problem exists, use a typical day strategy. Ask them to describe what a typical day is like. In the contemplation stage, you can use MI and ask open-ended questions to evoke change talk. You can encourage the client to talk about the values to evoke change talk. If in the preparation stage, you can use MI through the use of summaries, and the provider can summarize the little victories they've made up to this point. MI is shown to be most beneficial in the first 3 stages, but it can be used in action and maintenance as well by using affirmations or summaries. In summary, engaging in the spirit of motivational interviewing adds benefit. It is a complementary technique to the trans-theoretical model. It is shown to provide benefit in the first 3 stages, but it can be used in the action and maintenance stages. The two used together equal better treatment adherence and outcomes, and it equals positive movement. I thank you for your attention today.